Okay, Ha'azinu. Very, very powerful teaching. Moshe starts out with 4 statements. First statement is, I'm going to be sharing with you what you really need to understand, and the earth and the heavens are my witness. Now, as he talks about the earth and heavens as the witness, he's really talking about the inner understanding, the earth going up, and the heavens energetically coming down. The 2 levels of understanding where we get inspiration from within ourselves and from without ourselves. And he's saying that's really the message here. And he's really saying in the first 2 statements, listen and get ready to listen. I want you to listen with your heart. You have to open the ears of your heart. So those are his first 2 statements. And he is, again, talking about levels of inspiration, and he's talking about the cycle of how the spiritual energy works. And what I mean by that is particularly initially, it was what we call the chef or divine energy coming down, inspiring people. And then the earth level, people bringing inspired to bring it up. But the cycle, as it evolves, requires the human element, the earth, to start bringing up the energy, to activating the downward flow from there. So he's talking about a real cycle of how the spiritual energy moves, and is really telling people that you play a role here. It isn't just all going to be given to you. Now remember, for 40 years, it was just given to them. Clothes didn't wear out, shoes didn't wear out, didn't need new underwear, food was delivered from heaven, air delivered. Everything was really, really easy. Okay? And now he says you're entering the land, and it's all now more up to you. And you're going to have to do that cycle, and you've been prepared to do that. And he's giving them a warning. But there's 2 other components to this. The 3rd statement is, I'm going to say, just sum it up, give glory to God. Honor God, honor Hashem. Okay? The 4th statement is honor the rock. What he's talking about is justice. There is karma here. And now I'm going to put all those together so we can kind of understand. So he's saying the forces of heaven and earth are the witness. He's saying we have to participate, and he's saying give honor to God. Now that's a big statement and requires a whole lot of discussion. So that's what we're going to do. Okay. The first statement is acknowledge there's a God. And what he's warning people is that what I see in the future is you're going to lose your focus, you're going to get to be fat cows, Jezreel, and you're going to forget where your grace has come from. You're going to forget where your abundance has come from, and you're going to think you did it. And you're going to lose interest. Now, I think it's really important to point out that Moses is saying this, roughly speaking, at least 500 years before the downfall happened. So I'm thinking 500 years, that's longer than the United States has existed. So kind of think that they did pretty well for at least 500 years. And so actually they did follow it to a certain extent, up and down, but they followed it. And I think it's important to see that. Then they they kind of lost track. Okay, the materialism kind of began to more and more take over. So, but I just want to honor the fact that they did make it for longer. The United States has made it so far. So kind of pointing that out in a perspective. I think it helps to have a little perspective on the situation. Okay, the key is give honor to God. So that has many ramifications. Ramification one is understand there's only God. And they really make the point that there are no other gods. So what he was talking about specifically was the battle that had been going on already, which is the battle with the dark side, the battle with Baal, the battle with all the secondary gods that people tended to get involved in at that time in history. That was the reality. And he saw that people were just fresh, 40 years isn't a lot, just fresh out of having the one God. Okay? And so he was warning, stay with that. Now there's more to that at the multiple levels. One of the most important levels is understanding that whenever we talk, we're honoring God. Because who is God? The I amness. And we say, I am so-and-so, and I am this. We're always talking the name of God. So another way of honoring God is actually understanding that we're actively honoring that presence whenever we speak, if we're being conscious of it. If we're being unconscious, we're still honoring it, but not as powerfully. So the key is from the initial I amness, which is the expression of the divine, becomes the human I amness. In other words, they're really one and the same. So the message in the Torah is humanity is part of God. That's a very clear message. It's an expression of God. And so the breath of Hashem is breathed into humanity. Well, what's that breath? That's the spirit of the image of God. We have that blown into us. That's a pretty good way to start. And so we basically, the image of God is planted in us. So by honoring the I amness and honoring the image of God, we are, in a sense, giving truth to God. It changes our perception of who we are, because when we see we're part of the divine, we look upon ourselves very differently than we're just a piece of meat out there walking around that's alive. It's like, no, we have a soul, and that soul is the image of God, and it comes from God. So he's talking about honoring God. We're really honoring ourselves as part of the divine. So that changes the perspective. And what he's saying to people is, hey, you're honoring God by living in this way. You're honoring God when you live in a way that honors the divine within yourself, that honors the image of God within you. So we can see how that goes deeper into the story. So we start at one level, no idol worship. We start to see God in all things, and ultimately we see God in ourselves as that I amness, which is a reverberation of the profound I amness of Hashem. Now that begins to speak to what he's saying. If you do this, this is who you are. If you remember this, you're not going to get lost here. You're going to be successful. You're going to be able to hold the energy, not just for 500 years, but for thousands of years. So that's the advice. Now, people actually did follow it for hundreds of years. I mean, they didn't just like, okay, thanks, see you later, and get in trouble. That's not what happened. They were able to hold it, really, and that was the important understanding that I'm trying to bring. There's another message that he gave in this song, and that message is, you probably won't be able to succeed at this right away, and you're going to get kicked out of the land, and you're going to have to pay your price. Remember, God the rock is the law of karma. It's not going to change. It's just, and it's going to happen. That was the fourth statement in the Parsha, in his song that he's giving me. Okay? And then you will come back. Now the interesting thing, and it's really interesting, is you'll come back, but you don't even have to be redeemed. You're going to come back anyway to the land. That was interesting. And the covenant is unbroken, and you will come back. Yes, better that you should be redeemed by your actions, but it's not required. And that's why it's sometimes confusing to people about understanding Israel. It's like, well, it doesn't look that. Some people feel it doesn't look that holy, and there's certainly holy elements, but it's not fully there. That's fine. That's what the prophecy was. The other part of the prophecy is that all those who oppressed you will receive their proper karmic return. And that's what we're going to see in this picture. That's what's going to emerge in time, is that all the nations that oppressed you will receive their karmic return, also known as punishment, or however you want to see it, but it's really karmic return. So there is this whole process going on. I haven't forgotten. You will be returned. The covenant will be kept, and the redemption will happen, and those who oppressed you are going to have to pay their price before, so they can go through a purification, so they can also be elevated. Okay. Now, in this overall statement is some very, very important mission statements to Am Israel. The first mission statement is remembering the I amness and sharing it with the world, that we are the spark of God. We're not just objects without a soul. We're the spark of God, and for Am Israel to take that message to the nations. Okay? The other level of message is for Am Israel to take the teachings of the Enlightenment teachings of the Torah to the nations. So they really did get an assignment here to bring this out there. And part of the being kicked out of the land of Am Israel created a spreading of the Torah teachings all over the world. So that's another way of understanding what happened, is that, well, there's an easy way to do it and there's a hard way. We can kick you out. That's what you choose to do. Or you can be a light to the nations more consciously, rather than being oppressed by the nations in order to bring the message. So these are extremely important teachings. I want to go back again to the emphasis of following the way of God is the message for everyone, as a way of uplifting the world. So the message, and this is really, there's two-part message. Message is, this is good. The nation needs to do this. Am Israel needs to do it. Don't stop there. Your message, your dharma, is to bring it to the world. It isn't enough just for Am Israel to take this and live it in their own, in Am Israel. It has, for you to fulfill your role, it has to be shared with them. That's a pretty profound message, and that is the message that Moshe puts out in this song. Okay, and they sing the song to each of the tribes. Basically, the song is two levels of gift. One is the song. In song, brings a certain consciousness, and it brings unity. There's a really important kind of understanding here. There's a unity that happens when everyone's singing. Okay? So he's bringing the unity to the people and saying, hey, I'm giving you a mechanism to stay in unity. Let's all sing together. But that is what we're saying here, because there's power in that. There's power in that. And more or less, there's harmony in that. So can all the tribes sing the song? Yeah, that's what they did. Let's all sing the song together. Let's feel our unity. So that's one piece. And the final and key teaching is, it talks about God is alone. No, not that God is lonely. We don't even want to pretend that. God is alone. There are no other gods around. There's only God. There's only Hashem, and there are no idols. There's no secondary gods. There's no anybody. There's only the one. And don't get that confused. That was the message. But I want to talk about the aloneness here, because there is a message, and the message is really goes back to Balaam, where he says, you will be a nation set apart. You will be alone. And that's what's needed to have the clarity, depth, and spiritual power to bring the message to the world. You will be a nation set apart. And this is your mission. Well, let's take it down to the personal. So we're having our sing-along, everything's good, but we have to go deeper. If we stop there, we have not gotten the big message. And the big message is, we too are alone. Like Hashem, who's alone, like Am Israel is alone, each of us as unique expressions of the divine are also alone. That's a good thing. We can sing together to feel oneness, that's good. But at the end of the day, in the beginning of the day, and the middle of the night, and when you leave your body, you're alone. What does that say? The power of being alone is the power to access the image, the living image of Hashem within us. That's great news. But you have to do it. So the Baal Shem Tov talked about it, his great-grandson, Rabbi Nachman, great-great-grandson, Rabbi Nachman actually gave people a practice. He called it Hibbo-Ni-Nut, which is to go out in nature and be alone. Now, he said you can sing to God, you can talk to God, and you can also meditate. And a lot of their practice was meditating in the field, like Yitzhak did, and like Abraham did it in the fields of Mamre. And that is the practice of aloneness, which is given us. Remember, we mirror Hashem. So Hashem is alone, Am Israel is alone, and each of us, as part of our divine evolution, is alone. And in that aloneness, in the Hibbo-Ni-Nut meditation, being out in nature by yourself, we can then access the image of God, the living image of God within ourselves. And that is the big message here. It's obviously a pretty important message, is if we are going to hold the energetics of the Torah, if we're going to hold this divine way of life so we can bring it to the world, bring it to the nations of the world, as the assignment is, that's the assignment, do it for yourself, but bring it to the world, then we have to have a certain amount of aloneness where we can resonate with the image of the divine within ourselves, and then from the power of that we're able to hold the overall energies and share with the world. So may everybody be blessed that we truly are able to access this, Hibo Ninu, in a way then that empowers us to share the deep message of Hashem with the world and transform the world. Tikkun HaNefesh, Tikkun HaOlam.